Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again, and before we start, I would just like to tell everyone that my content is now available on all podcast platforms. This means you can listen to my stories on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the others. Just search for Ripe Stories on any of these platforms and you will find an exclusive episode that is not uploaded anywhere else. The title story starts like this. I am an avid photographer and lover of nature. My job and my passion were what inspired me originally to leave my hometown for new landscapes. My beautiful wife supported my decision and happily helped choose our first house together. I was not too modest to admit that my job allowed us to live a grander lifestyle so that we had no limit to our choices in house viewings. One particular property was in an area described and advertised as a little piece of heaven in the suburbs. We both fell in love with the house and quickly settled on it. It was not until after we finally moved in that we found out, rather than an angel, there was a devil living next door. A devil called Karen. Karen was not initially hostile, however, and even played the part of a good neighbor in welcoming us to the neighborhood along with a few others. But as she learned more about us, her kindness was replaced by bitterness and childish jealousy. Karen was a middle-aged woman that lived alone after arguments with her children left without anyone that wanted to visit or care for her. In her own words, she also had a hard time with employment due to what she said was a string of bad managers. Throughout her extensive attempts, even the job she had now as a shelf stacker she felt was sadly temporary due to being the victim of quoted harassment and unfair treatment. This notion made me slightly suspicious. Sure, 1 or 2 times you might run into a manager like that, but could she really be that unlucky? The conversation naturally drifted over to my work, and she was very surprised to find that my employment history was quite the opposite. While she may have tried to hide her disgust, her face twisted at the idea that I was self-employed and successful. She even added comments that photography was not a real job, while trying to play it off as a joke that no one found funny. And to top it off, when I mentioned that I used a car a lot for my job, she practically invited herself along so that I could take her to work each day. Not a pleasant obligation I wanted to get stuck with. I laughed it off with a non-committal answer, though she seemed to gloss over my reply as her eyes stayed fixed to the car. Karen knew that my car was very special to me, but still she decided to spite me anyway and risked the ruin of my family. 2 hours after first meeting the neighbors, we heard a knock at the door whilst unpacking boxes upstairs. Opening the door, I found Karen in her work uniform, pacing impatiently around my front porch. Without approval, she scooted in through the open doorway and began to look around. Karen seemed somewhat panicked at my lackluster pace, though I don't remember why I should be rushing. She said that she was ready to go to work and would be late if we did not hurry. When I asked why she was here, she seemed quite confused and sharply told me to get my keys so I could drop her off on my way out. Slowly and carefully, I explained to the seemingly mental lady that I was not working today, which earned me a net of insults instead of apologies. Despite this fact, Karen still waited for me to take her to work, but I apologized and said I was too busy to do that. She stormed off in a loud slur of not so pleasant thoughts she expressed about me out loud. I took her annoyance as a minor inconvenience until she decided to escalate her vendetta the following week. I woke up Monday morning and prepared for work like any other day. It was still dark out, but I often had to travel far for the photograph, so it was a long day. As I stepped outside and fumbled with my key fob, nothing happened. I thought perhaps the sensor was broken and instead started staggering blindly forward, expecting to bump into it, but I didn't. My car, which I had definitely left on the driveway, was now gone. I went back in and woke up my wife to see if she had moved it last night. I was still a little tired, so panic had not set in just yet. It was only when my wife woke up an hour later, confused, that things started to feel real. My first instinct was that the car had been stolen, so I rang the police to report it. An hour later, the cops returned the call to say it's been found at a nearby impound yard but had no records as to who or when it was brought in. I was confused but relieved, at least I could go collect it. I was shocked even more when I found out that when picking up the car, I had to pay a $150 impound fee despite my own arguments that it had no reason to be towed in the first place. The attendant refused to budge on the price and I left feeling furious. That fury persisted the rest of the day as I sat through late traffic leaving the area and then missing most of the daylight, making my long trip nearly pointless. When I got home at near midnight, I went straight to bed, eager to end the long and miserable day. I woke up early the next morning and repeated the cycle, my body moving with clear routine and purpose without needing to think about it. It was not until I stepped outside that I was forced again out of my daze. The car was gone again. I stared blankly at my empty driveway despite the darkness and the cold. As I stood there, I noticed my neighbor Karen's light was on. Perhaps she noticed me outside and wanted to see if I was alright. Sure enough, she left her house and came trudging over in her nightgown. However, her reception was frostier than the environment. As if to mock my distress, she laughingly joked that I had lost my car again before returning to her house when she saw I was ignoring her. Before she disappeared completely from sight, she shouted out to me to stop being impoundable. Odd choice of words. But the oddness of it seemed to at least shake me out of my numbness and my mind woke up a little bit. I did not think that I had mentioned this to anyone else since it happened, and I know my wife had not either, so how did Karen know? A tired and paranoid brain left alone goes on very weird spirals. I was very close to calling the cops with a very direct and angry accusation painting Karen as the mastermind. But I knew without motive or evidence it would do little good. Kicking my plan into action, I left the house and caught a bus hoping to be out and home again before my wife found out it was a habit to be concerned about. Stopping at the familiar impound, I found the same unimpressed attendant waiting to berate me. I could tell they recognized me but had no pity for my case as they charged me the same $100 yesterday. This was getting to be an expensive revenge if it was Karen's doing. I drove straight home. I thought work could wait until my car was safe again. Karen seemed to be out as well. This was good. What I had to do next had to be done secretly. Taking out the gadgets I bought earlier, I hid a small dash camera and microphone inside the seats. I took the rest of the day off and tried not to think about it, though I was keenly excited to see what the footage would pick up the next morning. At this point, I wanted it to be taken away and had no reason to suspect it wouldn't. So the next morning, I eagerly rolled out of bed and went outside. Just as I had hoped, the car had been taken again by the strange towing goblins that Karen commanded. And hopefully now I can prove it. Of course, this did also bring the total spent now up nearly $400 from the gadgets and towing fees, but I intended to make them repay me and much more when I finally found out whom or why. So I retrieved the car with little fuss from impound, handing over the required $100 without any fight this time. Then, as soon as I got home, I took out the gadgets and pored over the footage. So basically, at 1 AM, I saw a shadowy figure pausing by the side of my car as a car pulled up alongside it. In a brief flash of lamplight, I saw the logo of the towing company on the truck. A conversation started, but it was too muffled to make out. I guess I hit the microphone too well that the quality was not clear. I cursed out loud. This wasn't nearly enough. No matter, there was always another night, another try. It didn't help that my wife noticed these large payments, but I assured her that the matter would be settled soon without too much detail. I decided to set my alarm that night. Now that I knew when to check, I could hopefully catch them in the act with my own eyes. I moved the microphone to the outside of the car for better sound, and now with a smaller video camera, I was ready to shoot from all angles. Like clockwork, 1 AM arrives and I hear the reversing of a truck outside amidst hushed conversation. Peeking between my blinds, I catch Karen consorting with a tow truck operator as slick as a drug deal. I must have moved too much as heads turned in my direction and I dropped to the floor out of sight, staying there a few minutes until I heard the truck move away. Carefully sneaking another look, I saw the driveway and street around totally empty. While I was excited to see what the microphone picked up this time, I knew better to wait until the morning to get the car, not to arouse any suspicion before its time. I gave my wife a long overdue explanation the next morning while waiting for the cops to arrive. She was shocked at the discovery, just as ready as I was to see Karen pay for it. Then 2 hours later we had the car back. After handing over my story and the video camera, the cops were able to rescue the car without charge. Karen was taken to the station to answer a few questions and we were updated with the news of her arrest the same day. In the face of witness testimony and hard evidence, Karen caved under pressure and admitted that she had called for my car to be towed away. A follow-up interview of the tow truck operator found them to be a close friend of Karen who had been abusing their authority to handle things off the books knowing it was illegal. They were even sharing the impound fees I handed over each day with Karen. In the weeks of courtroom battles that followed, Karen and her friend were found guilty of Grand Theft Auto. The case even made the news and thrust her into notoriety in the area. Karen lost her job, her friend was forced to close the company, and I never had trouble with my car again. I guess Karen thought Grand Theft Auto is only a video game and not something that has consequences in real life. And well, Ripe Stars, you can imagine, being found guilty of Grand Theft Auto means that Karen will have a nice change of scenery for a long time. Let's hope that she cannot bother OP again anytime soon. Either way, if you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to leave a comment and maybe even like the video if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much. And the next one is titled Terrible Neighbors. So my friend Paul has worked at the Valuation Office of Assessments VOA, don't confuse this with HOA, for his local council for the past 26 years. He has got a lot of stories, but this one is my favorite. So for context, the VOA is responsible for evaluating which council tax band a property should be on. The higher the band, the more council tax you pay. For those people outside the United Kingdom, council tax is used to fund civic services such as schools, rubbish collection and emergency services, etc. Which band you get depends on a lot of different factors, but generally speaking, the more a property is worth, the higher the band is likely to be. Change to a property that significantly increases its value, such as getting pools or extensions built, can sometimes mean a property has to be reassessed to see if it needs to go up a band. By the way, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, if you own a property outside of the UK, let's say in the United States, what kind of property tax, if that even exists, do you pay? For example, my grandma lives in Western Europe and the property tax that she has to pay is absolutely outrageous. It's basically the same as I would pay for a super cheap apartment here in Thailand monthly. Anyway, there was a woman, let's call her Sarah, who would regularly call Paul's office to report her neighbors for everything. Sarah was a typical nosy neighbor curtain twitcher who made it her life's mission to know everyone's business. Her hobby was reporting her neighbors to the police, HMRC, UK equivalent of the IRS, immigration, and of course the VOA. To give you an idea of just how awful this woman was, here are a few stories various neighbors told Paul and his colleagues. One neighbor got reported to HMRC because he came home with a fancy new car and therefore he clearly must be evading taxes. It was a 5-year-old Mondeo he had just bought second-hand. Another neighbor was reported because Sarah didn't think their child looked sick enough to be off school, so she reported them for truancy. The child had recently had an emergency appendectomy, and they were at home recovering as per their doctor's orders. Everyone in Paul's department hated this woman. Not only did she add to their already heavy workload, but she was also rude, entitled, and generally unpleasant to talk to. She often exaggerated her reports to ensure somebody would be sent to inspect the property. Worse still, her reports often caused her neighbors call and shout at Paul and his colleagues, understandably so. But what they hated most of all was that they were obligated to follow up on any report she made, and she never got in trouble for giving false or exaggerated reports. They knew she was just a mean old lady and they did not want to enable her behavior, but policy was policy. Well, one day, Paul drew the short straw and took a call from the dreaded Sarah. My neighbors at number 61 added a new bedroom to their house, and they got a new kitchen in with an extension, and he put up a new shed. I bet they haven't reported it. Sarah whined. I demand somebody re-evaluate them immediately. If I have to pay my taxes, so do they. Paul begrudgingly sent a letter out to the neighbor at number 61, let's call him Joseph, feeling very sorry for him. A few days later, Joseph called, clearly fed up. Joseph explained that he had checked with the office before getting the work done, and he had been told that the work was not significant enough to be reported. So therefore, he didn't report it. There was a note on Joseph's account confirming this. Throughout the whole conversation, Joseph was friendly and nice. He knew Paul had a job to do. When the inspector attended Joseph's property, Sarah stared gleefully from behind her curtains. However, the joke was on her because the inspector uncovered that Joseph's house had mistakenly been put on the wrong band for over a decade. He should have been on a much lower one. This meant Joseph was due a massive rebate for overpaying his council tax for years. Paul laughed his rear off when the report came to his desk. He was delighted to call Joseph and give him the good news. So here is the petty part. After the two had a good chuckle about everything, Joseph told Paul he would use some of the money to throw a big F you barbecue garden party. He would invite all his neighbors except for Sarah. Joseph mentioned he might get some banners made for the party that said "F you Sarah," but Paul warned him that could get him in legal trouble, so instead Joseph decided the banners would say "Thanks for the money, Sarah" instead. So finally, Joseph threw his big flashy garden party, complete with banners he got printed. Meanwhile, Sarah seethed from behind her curtains, knowing she was responsible for Joseph's sudden windfall. Sarah continued to report her neighbors for every little thing, so I guess she did not learn her lesson. And yeah, ripe stars, why do you need enemies or criminals if you have neighbors like this? It must be absolutely hellish to live next to a neighbor that is like Sarah. If you ever had similar experiences in real life, then please feel free to share your experiences in the comments. Either way, the next one is an Am I the A-hole neighbor story. My husband, 42 male, and I, 31 male, live in a nice apartment. We are not really friends with our neighbors, we are polite, but that's about it. Our upstairs neighbor Kelly is a lesbian, closet she only told us because she assumes all LGBT+ needs to be friends who's never told her family. Well, she has been lying to her mother about having a boyfriend by describing my husband. Red-haired, groomed beard, former Marine, she came to our apartment to ask a huge favor. Her mother was coming over to dinner, she needed my husband to act like her boyfriend and break up with her. I asked if she was serious, but I told Kenny it's up to him. Kenny held up his hand to show his wedding ring and said only way it's coming off if someone chops the finger off, and no way is he gonna act as her fill-in boyfriend or a cheating husband. Kelly begged us to reconsider, but I told her no means no. She brought up that gays need to stick together, but I hold firm, Kenny is my man. And he said no too. Kelly has since told her mom about being a lesbian, and that made her mom leave without staying for dinner. Kelly told us. Kelly says we are both vicious a-holes for forcing her to come out, and we say we aren't because she lied about a man. And here, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the a-hole or not? Comment number 1 on Reddit said, "Not the a-hole, lies have consequences. It totally sucks that her mother hurt her and that she felt the need to hide who she is, but she cannot demand people come rescue her from her own lies. That boy's a keeper though, I can see the appeal." Comment number 2, not the a-hole, there's a difference between solidarity and enabling. She easily could have used something else for her mom instead of a lie about your husband. Comment number 3, not the a-hole, even without you helping her, she didn't have to come clean to her mother. Not hard to just say, sorry, me and Mr. Marine broke up. I mean, you could have helped her, honestly, something you would have laughed about, and the ring thing is a bit weird, but none of that makes you the a-hole for not helping. She is misplacing her blame, but don't be too tough on her. She's obviously going through a lot. And yeah, ripe stars, I gotta say, I really respect the level of empathy, especially the last comment brought to the table. And the next one is titled, "You have a terrible drainage system and you don't want to help me? Your downstream neighbor fix it? Enjoy losing your tenants." This bit of malicious compliance has been developing for some time, and yesterday and today it has finally borne fruit. The area we live in has changed drastically in the last decade or so. Almost all of our neighbors have pulled down their homes and have constructed apartment buildings. The problem is that the sewer system is quite old and is not built to handle the current volume of waste. A Chinese company is in the process of constructing a new sewer system, so the old line experiences a lot of blockage. In our home we have a septic tank, we use the sewer system only as a drain for rainwater, the compound is about halfway up a hill. The upper boundary has a live fence, but the lower side next to the road has a wall. This essentially means that when it rains, water from up the hill can flow into our compound but has no outlet. The dirt road on the other side of the wall is also poorly built and pools a lot of water next to our wall. So, to get rid of rainwater, there is an underground connection from the lowest point in our compound to the sewer line, which runs parallel to the wall on the other side of the road. It is not the most ideal setup, but it has worked for decades. Anyway, the new constructions have overtaxed the existing system. When there is a blockage, the backflow ends up in our yard, since it is the lowest exit. There are about 5 apartment buildings upstream of our connection, each with over 30 units, so the backflow is usually pretty heavy. Most of the times we react quickly and remove the blockage, but it is really a pain in my ass. To add on to this, the caretakers for the 5 apartment buildings don't do anything to help me. So last week the Chinese construction cut into the existing line. However, they just filled the hole with the breach with dirt and carried on without telling anyone. I came home to a stinky flooded compound with pieces of crap floating by. I call my usual guys, but they are not around, so I decide it is time for the upstream caretakers to help out. I find 3 of the 5 chilling. I will be me, they will be C1, C2, C3, conversation translated from native language. Me, hey guys, the sewer line is blocked, I need a hand. C1,
why are you always bothering us with this? It's your problem.
Me, it is our problem, we all use this line, you need to contribute to its maintenance.
We have moved to the new Chinese system. My building doesn't use the old one anymore.
This was a lie. The Chinese construction was being done in stages and it was nowhere near our street. Me, guys, we are all moving to the new line when it gets here. Just help me out until we can switch. C2, pissed at being called out.
That is not our problem. You handle it however you want. We don't care. Deal with your own stuff.
This really pissed me off since they had no idea how much I did for them. You want me to deal with my crap however I want? Sure thing. First of all, I found the location where the blockage was. Luckily, the crew were still there and they were super chill in helping me unblock it, although I had to buy new pipes to repair the section they had broken and also bought them some tea, if you know what I mean. Corruption is a cancer in my country. But I didn't stop there. Motivated by the caretaker's arrogance, I asked some of the guys to help me out the following day. Basically, what we did was we removed the connection between our compound and the sewer line. Instead, we leveled the depression in the road right outside our wall to allow rainwater to flow freely down slope, and then we removed a brick from the bottom of the wall to give rainwater an exit from our compound. All I had to do was wait. Yesterday afternoon, the crew working on the Chinese construction caused another blockage on the old line. Again, they did not tell anyone, they only covered it up with dirt and rocks just like before. By dusk, the 5 apartment buildings started feeling the blockage. The people living on the ground floor, some of them my friends, start to complain. Apartments are getting flooded, sink drains are not working, toilets are not flushing well. Showers smell of crap and are flooded with grey water. This evening, almost all the ground floor residents in the 2 closest apartment buildings are moving out. The stench in the houses is unbearable. I just laugh as I help my friends move. The caretakers are too ashamed to ask me for help. They have no idea where the blockage could be since they have never had to fix one before. I am not about to tell anyone. Update, so just an update, the caretakers moved pretty quick. Turns out they are not bad at their jobs, only needed some motivation. They, all 5, managed to fix the blockage by the afternoon, although by then a 3rd apartment building had begun experiencing some difficulty. A couple more people moved out, but I think it is mostly due to the smell lingering around the buildings. As I am writing this, I have just come from looking in on the damage. The caretakers are still cleaning houses, will cost a pretty penny to fix up. I doubt they will be habitable for the next couple of months or so. The 3 caretakers whose buildings have been affected are pretty cross with me. There have been some threats about reporting me to the owners of the buildings, but I'm not too worried about that. I am sure the owners will come wondering why they are suddenly spending a lot of money for repairs, but they are friends of the family. People I have known ever since I was a kid when this community was still small, so I'm sure there won't be a problem. The drainage system we built a few days ago is yet to be tested by rain, so fingers crossed. In any case, I won't be moving back to the previous system. Some of the comments here prompted me to do some research and I realized that diverting storm water into the sewer line is a terrible thing to do, so I'm not doing that again. Otherwise, I think my malicious compliance has come to an end. Thank you guys for your comments, I learned new things and particularly enjoyed the crappy puns. Take care and stay fresh. By the way, I was wrong, the repercussions seem to be snowballing. They apparently couldn't wait and decided to build a line to meet the Chinese construction. And well guys, that just shows sometimes it can be definitely beneficial to help your neighbors out. Otherwise, there might be a crappy surprise waiting for you. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.